So far through the 2020 election cycle, Joe Biden's campaign has made little to no effort to reach out to the Latino community. In this interview, he tries, but during it, he insults black Americans.
Yes. And by the way, what you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things.
Now, I know how he meant to say that, but it doesn't really matter because if you look at the intent or the accidental phrasing, it comes back to the same message that black voters are a monolithic group that will vote Democratic no matter what, aside from a few outliers. And Latinos are much more diverse when it comes to the voting bloc because it's a populist voting bloc that often goes to Republicans and people like Trump. If you look at the Democratic primary, even Latinos went to a guy like Bernie Sanders, who represents populist values, a government that will fight for the people, whether the person saying that believes it or not, or will actually do anything about it, like Donald Trump, because, Donald Trump's a complete fraud in every sense of the word. It still appeals to that voting base, and Joe Biden's campaign knows he has no chance of getting the Latino vote because right at the beginning of the campaign, they essentially said they're going to do the suburban strategy. That's what I call it. And it's focusing on the white voters. It's focusing on the soccer families. They said they weren't going to do anything to try and get Latino voters. And here he was talking about his plan to restructure the Latino community in America. He said that Donald Trump has ruined the Latino identity or something like that. Joe Biden will come back and give you higher wages and better jobs and whatever. But it came out as, black people are less diverse than Latino people. And I mean, it's another Joe Bidenism. It's another thing he actually believes. He has a history of racist statements even before he was cognitively declining. And this rings of the past "you ain't black" statement he made to Charlemagne the God. And this is a per interview thing for Joe Biden. I would say weekly, I would say daily, but they are hiding Biden right now because they know that's the only way they will beat Donald Trump because he says incredibly stupid things in a really bad way. I mean, before Joe Biden could hide it behind his skill as a politician, he was never a great speaker, but he was great at politicking and manipulation. Now he has none of that to hide what he actually means. So when he talks and rambles like an old man usually does, he's like 77 or 78, he's losing it. When he rambles like that, he accidentally says things that he doesn't understand. And it's made worse by the fact that he needs to communicate like I am right now in front of a camera with a microphone. I'm sure he's not used to that setting. If he couldn't do live interviews in person, imagine him sitting in his basement alone with lights all around him, trying to communicate with a person through a tiny screen in front of him with headphones on. It's just a formula meant for disaster. It's meant to fail. But I need to give a warning to the Democratic Party. The next few years, when it comes to local races, when it comes to when we get back to national politics, whether Joe Biden wins or not, I think the grassroots is ready. We're seeing a lot of progressive surging throughout the ballots from state levels, local levels on up to the national level. And we're seeing a big surge. We're seeing a lot of groups that used to think the Democrats were the only saving grace, realizing now that there is a better hope, there is a better structure organizing within this progressive wing that actually cares about the things that the Democratic Party pretends to care about. National Democratic politics isn't the only place we see this attitude with black voters. If you notice throughout the entire primary, all the media would talk about, all these DNC corporate sponsored talking heads, all they would discuss is how South Carolina is going to swing the entire race because black people are going to finally be able to speak. Black people are finally going to have their voice. And they essentially took that South Carolina date and projected the beliefs of the black people in that state and said, well, black people here think that. They all think that. A person in Seattle who may be black, a person in Los Angeles who may be black, a person in New York and Atlanta, a person in central Pennsylvania or in the Midwest. All these people are going to think like South Carolina does. And they essentially took Jim Clyburn from South Carolina, who, by the way, is one of the most corrupt politicians in American history when it comes to taking big pharma money. They're going to take him, they're going to take South Carolina, the influence he has over that state, and extrapolate it to represent every black person in America. So from the beginning, the media was minimizing diversity within the black community of thought, of ideology, and it has been suppressed. So let me know in the comments what you think about this story. Was it accidental? Was it a Freudian slip? Or did it come out the way he wanted it to? And as always,